over 45 years during the Cold War, an all-encompassing military machine controlled America's nuclear weapons. Some 250,000 people strong, the Strategic Air Command was known by its acronym, SAC. The men and women of the command did not make foreign policy, but trained to be its ultimate enforcer. They did not build the weapons, but masterminded how they were deployed and where they would strike. They did not defend the country, but by their sheer strength deterred the enemy from attack.
It was a proud command, but it was a disciplined command with a heavy boot. And discipline was the name of the game. And I'm glad, because it needed to be disciplined. It was dealing with things that were so important and so critical. You couldn't make a mistake.
The heart of the United States nuclear forces was a triad of military might. SAC bombers and refueling aircraft made up the first prong of the attack. SAC intercontinental ballistic missiles located throughout the U.S. were another system ready at a moment's notice to decimate enemy targets. While the Navy's nuclear missile-bearing submarines were the third and final sea-based arm of the U.S. offensive. Reconnaissance air and spacecraft, as well as mobile command centers, rounded out SAC's capability. At its height, the Strategic Air Command controlled over 3,000 aircraft, thousands of missiles, and tens of thousands of nuclear weapons. The command's emblem was a raised armored fist holding both olive branch and lightning bolts. SAC's message was clear: peace through absolute strength. During the Cold War, that strength hinged on the military men and women of the command, rationally facing the unthinkable.
I can't imagine any more challenging career than preparing, training, working as hard as you could to do a job that you hoped you never, ever had the opportunity to do. How do you wake up in the morning and bounce your 3-year-old daughter on your knee, kiss her goodbye, go to work, and realize that if you do what you're trained for, she may not be there when you get home.
With the ironic motto, "Peace is our profession," the United States Strategic Air Command was a military giant.
It's probably as an effective a military enterprise, if you will, that the world has ever known. It operated automatically, meticulously. Nothing's ever error-free in the military, but it really was an awesome.
By the late 70s, the Strategic Air Command had become a fine-tuned machine. The commanders worked diligently to keep their personnel ready to go to war with the most destructive weapons known to man. This Air Force film shows a training exercise as SAC commanders at headquarters on Offutt Air Force Base respond to a simulated Russian attack. This scenario begins as would a real battle situation. The Joint Chiefs of Staff send a coded message through the National Command Center in Washington, D.C., letting SAC know of an increased military alert.
Sir, we have an emergency action message.
Go ahead and process it.
The Commander-in-Chief of the Strategic Air Command, or SAC, takes his place overlooking the command center. As Washington informs the commander of increasing tensions, he ratchets up his command's response.
Sir, based on the current situation, I recommend that we disperse forces to ready, standby, and civilian bases. Do you concur?
Recommendation approved.
Thank you, sir.
He first sends bombers and refueling planes from their assigned bases to other military and civilian airports. Spread out, the airplanes won't be as easy to target if the Soviets should strike. Then, the unthinkable.
General Ellis, we have indications of multiple ICBM launches threatening North America. This activity is now displayed on the balcony monitors behind you.
Sir, your decision time is shown here. Once the force under positive control, I'm going airborne.
Yes, sir.
For safety, the SAC takes off in a command aircraft. In the final steps of the exercise, the Russian launch is confirmed. The President orders a mass retaliation of American nuclear forces, and the Strategic Air Command is given the go code.
Message follows. Tango 6-3 Delta Yankee Tango 6-1-7-2.
If this scenario, which was enacted so calmly, had ever played out in real life, the world as we know it probably would have ended. But at SAC's technological peak, politics, not warfare, caused its demise. In the late 80s, Mikhail Gorbachev's perestroika led to revolutionary changes in the Soviet Union. SAC's strength was reduced with the wavering Soviet threat.
Well, I think it happened gradually. Through most of the Cold War, we actually had aircraft in the air all the time. That's very expensive. So the first thing was to take them off airborne alert. And then there was the command and control aircraft, which was in the air 24 hours a day. Do you have to have that up all the time? And so it happened gradually.
The Berlin Wall had fallen, and countless other Soviet satellites were breaking away. The Cold War had been won. On June 1st, 1992, SAC was disbanded.
I think the end of the command meant different things to different people, but for those folks who were so invested in that lifestyle, in that devotion to purpose, in that commitment to excellence, in that understanding and appreciation that what the command stood for was peace, and that what they had to do was to preserve that peace through training and through honor and through constantly asking the question, how can we do this better? When that all of a sudden was gone, I think there are a lot of SAC veterans who would tell you that they lost something.
Others can claim fame, but the Cold War commander's responsibility was to make sure that there was no war and no sacrifice. We didn't walk the cat back, and we didn't get him into a fight.
Today, bilateral disarmament continues to shrink the size of the United States nuclear arsenal. U.S. forces, reduced by over 50%, still hold a tremendous advantage over the crumbling military of the former Soviet Union. Today's American nuclear forces are overseen by multiple commands within different military branches, while the targeting and planning of the weapons falls to a relatively small military entity created in 1992, simply called Strategic Command. But the blueprint from which all the commands work was once the sole domain of the most powerful, ominous, and focused military structure ever created, the United States Strategic Air Command.